Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Celtics have won the NBA title. Does that mean the Lakers can find next?
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 24,000 subscribers go to hang out and try to figure out exactly what the Lakers do now that the NBA season is officially over. And it ended on a note that Lakers fans don't particularly like, with the Celtics winning an 18th title. I'm curious how you guys out there feel. Certainly, Andy, how you feel this might impact the way the Lakers approach things, how fans look at where they are right now. Do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we'll get to the coaching thing here in a second, but Andy, a brutally boring finals came to a close on Monday. And it really did seem like the inevitable finally came around. The Celtics win. They have title number 18. They have broken the tie with the Lakers, and Lakers fans aren't happy about it.
No, and I don't expect that they would be happy about it. And I can't say as a Laker fan that I am happy about it. I have been looking for different upside ways of viewing the Celtics winning this championship. First of all, just on a totally heartwarming note, my daughter is spending the night Monday night at a friend's, but she actually texted me to see if I was okay after the Celtics winning this championship. So if nothing else, it confirmed I'm raising an awesome kid. So that was pretty fantastic. She's not even particularly into the NBA or the Lakers or
she just wants to make sure dad's okay. Yeah.
She just wanted to make sure dad was okay. So that's pretty fantastic. As we will get into later in the show, inconvenient as it may be, the Celtics winning this thing actually may allow the Lakers to take care of some desperately needed business. Also, if the Celtics were going to win, I will say this. It's about as likable a Celtics team as one could reasonably ask for. Like Jason Tatum.
You are treading into some very dangerous territory, calling a Celtics team likable on any level.
I said they are as likable as any team you could reasonably ask for. Jason Tatum is pretty difficult to truly dislike, and honestly, it's Magic Johnson's fault that he's not a Laker or
a Pelican.
I was going to say
not a Pelican,
but that he actually is a Celtic. You can really blame that on Magic. Jaylen Brown is pretty difficult to truly dislike. Just at face value. Drew Holiday is among the most likable players.
Drew Holiday is one of my favorite players in the NBA,
on and off the court. Al Horford, pretty much everybody likes him. Derek White's easy to root for. Like, this is not the Paul Pierce. I don't even have to list anybody else. Paul Pierce. This is not the Paul Pierce Celtics. This is not the Larry Bird, McHale. Like, I'm not saying be happy about this. I'm just saying in terms of having to stomach food that is one day expired versus food that is a year expired,
it's a
this Celtics teams falls much closer to the one day expired. Also, too, if you're looking for a glass half full way of looking at this for the Lakers beyond, again, some of the Lakers business we're about to get into, dawned on me watching this game, as bad as the Westbrook trade was for the Lakers, you could argue that the Dame Drew Holiday trade between Milwaukee and Portland that eventually led to Holiday getting rerouted to Boston was actually worse for Milwaukee, because the Lakers may have shut the title window for LeBron in one move, but at least they did not hurt themselves and simultaneously improve a conference rival, because even if they didn't know Drew Holiday for sure would go to Boston, they knew Portland was going to reroute him somewhere else. Like
somewhere.
Had no need for him. So
right. Somewhere, and the answer wasn't going to be
Charlotte,
Indiana,
the Wizards,
the Wizards.
He was going to
be someone who wanted a player who could put them over the top. And
right.
I think, it's a couple things, because
cold comfort, I admit it all is, but I'm trying.
LA guy, Drew Holiday, there's that. I mean, look, basically what you're saying is it's a shame like these guys aren't like Orlando. Like if you just took the whole team and dropped them in a different uniform, make them the Raptors, and like this isn't such a big deal.
Or that Boston didn't trade all their players to Milwaukee, like one or the other.
But I think there are a few things about this that are at the core of what really annoys Lakers fans about this, beyond just it's the Celtics factor of it all. And that is a big thing. I'm not trying to dismiss that. But like when you start to break it down more than that, you look at the Celtics structurally, and Lakers fans may not want to say it out loud, but we are smart basketball fans. It's something the Lakers fans are really underrated just because of the whole Lakers exceptionalism thing. And we have an arrogance and a sense of entitlement, which is really what makes it fun to be a Lakers fan. But like you look at this team, and as much as people said they played with their food and they did this and they were disappointed, they romped through the playoffs. Like they romped through the East, and then they steamrolled a pretty good Mavericks team. And there was nobody really close to them. And so even if you think they got lucky, even if you think it wasn't fair and all this, like Boston was the best team in the regular season by, I think, a pretty good margin. And they were the best team in the playoffs by a pretty good margin. And there's no reason that this team can't be really good for another, I don't know, half decade. I mean, Al Horford eventually is going to slow down and retire. You wonder how long somebody like Porzingis can, how many years, like every other year he might say. But like Drew Holiday is a player who can age pretty gracefully, and Derek White. Like, so I think when you start to look, like that's what I think is part of what's upsetting to Lakers fans is their chance to go from 18 to 19 to 20 or whatever it might be, is the path to that is so much clearer than what Lakers fans would look at with the team now. Not that the Lakers suck, but like that path is not clear.
Well, okay, but that's interesting too, because before we get into how this finals ending could directly lead to the Lakers hiring a coach, the Celtics getting to 18, like I'm a Laker fan that doesn't like seeing the Celtics win championships, but the chase itself, the title chase, isn't what really gets me upset. Like, I actually think in the long run, the chase becomes more fun if there actually is back and forth between the Lakers and Celtics in terms of who's in the lead. And probably, I think most people who listen to this show regularly, the everydayers, would not accuse me of being a Pollyanna Laker fan. But the fact remains, the Lakers have had way more sustained success in the modern NBA, built by David Stern, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan in Boston. Like, this is just a fact. The Celtics.
Since televisions could broadcast the game in color, the Lakers have been more successful.
Right. So maybe that gives me a relative sense of calm with my unhappiness. But that said, if you are looking for an impetus for Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss to feel some pressure to get their proverbial bleep together, the Celtics passing them for 18 with more titles looking realistic, that is now you hope that it doesn't lead to trying to skip steps and jump ahead of the line.
This is because this is the big question that I really want to get into, is like, does this materially impact like the outlook around the building? Like, does this change the way the Lakers do things? Should it change the way they do things? We'll get into it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, WNBA, and the opportunity to bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. So $200 after just Pick the most obvious thing possible. Put down $5, boom, you win. 200 to put on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every home run and strikeout count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
I can see this, like you say. I think I saw our good friend Daman Rangula posted a tweet very similar to what you just said. Like, okay, like they just got 18, get your act together. And I think that Daman, who almost always very succinctly and articulately channels Lakers fans and their anger or whatever it is that they're feeling at any given moment, is summarizing what Lakers fans feel. It's like, fine, they have a really good team. Congratulations. Great. What are you going to do about it? And some people might look at this as silly, Andy, but I do think it really does ratchet up the heat a little bit. It changes the context of this discussion to know not just that the Celtics won and are ahead of you, but they are way ahead of you when it comes to future prospects to keep pulling away and all that.
Yeah, I mean, like I was starting to say, what I don't want to happen is that it causes Jeannie Buss to panic and put pressure on Rob Pelinka that leads to him to panic, where all of a sudden you end up with Russ 2.0 as the move that they try to make to put themselves
right
is
at
the
that?
front of the
what
line.
What could they possibly do that would be like the Russ 2.0 move?
I don't know off the top of my head, but even if I did, I will not voice it and put it out in the universe. I will not even risk speaking that into existence. So I don't know, but even if I did know, I'm not telling you. I'm not a Trae
Young fan, but Trae Young wouldn't be Russ, would it?
I am treating this like the scene in Ghostbusters, where if Dan Aykroyd thinks about it too much, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man attacks New York. I am not even blank mind. I am not even giving this any thought. But the point being, if it lights a fire under them to make sure that they are thinking about an example of process, if they can take the way Boston built their team through process and being methodical and building something and not making panic moves after one playoff run doesn't do well, or not firing their coach for reasons other than, totally unprofessional sexual harassment reasons, like what happened with Ime Udoka. Like Brad Stevens would have remained the coach of the Celtics for as long as he wanted to. And Joe Mazzulla is only their relatively new coach because Ime Udoka acted incredibly unprofessionally within the building and they needed to get rid of him. But if they can take the lessons of having a vision and building it and not skipping steps, and that, by the way, applies to assuming now they are free to hire JJ Redick, as everybody is expecting, that they actually give JJ Redick the support to grow into himself as a coach and not evaluate him through the prism of, okay, if you didn't win a championship in your first or second season, you're on the hot seat if not losing your job. Like, that is how you remain behind Boston in the chase to get back to even, unless you just get lucky.
Well, I mean, and I was about to say, luck is part of this.
Sure.
Like, you got to be bad at the right time. You got to be, able to be, in a position to draft guys. And I don't know the full draft history of how you end up with Tatum and Brown and this and that. I haven't gone through like the how the Celtics were built.
Well, we already established how they ended up with Tatum.
Right. Again, he at the very least should be a Pelican. Mm-hmm. And if the Pelicans had won the title, nobody would be that upset. It'd be like, good for those plucky little Pelicans. It requires some luck, but it requires patience. It requires really smart executives. Boston. It's not like Boston isn't a noisy media market.
You know how they ended up with Jason Tatum? I just remembered that was part of the Markelle Fultz deal that moved Philadelphia up to take Fultz.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody complains about, I mean, I've never seen a guy who's made 3 straight all NBA teams who like the NBA Twittersphere seems to think is worse than Jason Tatum. Like I really don't understand what the problem is with the guy. Let's say he caps out as like he's like the fourth through sixth best player in the NBA for like a decade and a half. That seems to me to be pretty good. Like he's a pretty good player. And I don't think you look at the Lakers and feel like this front office has that level of both imagination, acquire Drew Holiday, see how you can use Kristaps Porzingis, coming off some really rocky seasons, particularly with health, and seeing what the vision could be. Buying low, essentially, really, really low on Porzingis, and making that work. And it's just, I don't see how anybody could look at the Lakers front office and think that they have that level of continuity in thought, continuity in execution, and all these other things, because they're all over the map. They make good moves sometimes, and then they make really stupid moves other times, and they're big moves. Like, it's just, nobody has that level of confidence.
Like I said, I think a lot of this just comes down to patience, being methodical, and you can't have the standard be win a championship. It should always be the goal, but you have to be realistic about how you view the goal. And truly, the goal should always be, are we moving forward closer to a championship? If we didn't win, was this season closer? If not, why?
Did we maximize the opportunity that we have available to us? Because not every season realistically has an opportunity to enter the title.
Absolutely. But if you treat every single year as championship or bust, that is great branding ethos to get your fans excited and feel the pride that they rightly should, being a fan of this franchise. But if you take it too literally, it's going to lead to a lot of mistakes that lead to, that are the result of just short-term thinking, looking for shortcuts, and not being willing to just see a path and just take that path and build towards a path until you realize, okay, this path isn't working, but you got to give it a little bit of time.
But that's really what's tricky about this is on the one hand, like I think Darvin's a great example of this. Like you have to be able to decide, what, we've made a mistake, and pivot off of it. You have to be able to say, whether it's personnel, whether it's coaching, so it's in a vacuum. Like, you don't want to let the fact that you've fired like 4 coaches in the last 6 years or whatever it is, prevent you from doing what is the right move, which is Darvin needed to go. It wasn't all his fault. I think he actually could still be a very good head coach in the league. His 3rd season could have been better than the 2nd season, but it was just where they ended up was in a position where it just wasn't going to work. And if the Lakers got off to an even moderately difficult start, the heat on the franchise would have been so intense that it really would have been destructive. So Darvin had to go. So but you can't let that situation you're in keep you from firing the guy. But on the other hand, you also can't keep firing coaches every 2.5 years. And so the Lakers have to figure out how to push those buttons in the right way at the right time, where it's almost like coaching a game. Like, you're not panicking, but you're pressing you're dialing a certain thing at the right time. You're making the right substitution. And then at other times you're letting things play out. You're not overreacting to something. And maybe it starts with what they do with this draft. I think we'll get a lot of clues with there. And Andy, we might get a lot of clues based on when and if they hire a coach. So we'll get to all that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into power speed, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can always find exactly what you're looking for. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
So if the Lakers are going to get this coaching thing going quickly, in theory, the end of the finals is an impetus for that, because JJ Redick is no longer calling those games. I at this point, like, I just want to say, like, if they want to hire Redick, I want them to do it quickly, because that both gets this done and it empowers Redick. The longer the process plays out, the more people you interview, the more it seems like, oh, we like this guy and we like that guy, or, Borrego's their first choice, or Mike Honori is, but like they're less. If you want to empower and put Redick in the best situation to succeed, get this done quickly. Show confidence in him.
Well, here's the other thing. Unless they really have had deep interest in Sam Cassell, and for whatever reason, they couldn't interview Sam Cassell as freely as the Hornets somehow managed to in hiring Charles Lee during the playoffs. But let's just say, for whatever reason, they just could not line this up with Cassell. So now is where they do the deep diving into Sam Cassell's resume. There is no excuse for them not to have done all of the interviewing that they need to do by now. So even if they have been maintaining some time of, charade, basically pretending that they haven't already made up their mind about Redick for appearance's sake until Redick was done with his job, which, again, I just can't emphasize how stupid I think that whole thing is. I agree with you. Just hire Redick, make the announcement, and move forward, because it's the best way to get Redick the staff that he wants. It's the best way to get everybody on the same page before the draft, before free agency. Just move it along.
And that is, it's also, by the way, if they hired Redick tomorrow, it would be a nice way to overshadow the Celtics one more time over the course of this series.
Not sure that about it.
But the staff part of this is really important. Like, if there was ever a head coach that you wanted to guarantee the best talent pool to be able to fill out around, it would be your first-time coach in JJ Redick. Like, I don't know exactly what the competition, but the longer you wait for Borrego to fill out a staff, or somebody else to fill out a staff, or somebody signs a media contract, or whatever it might be, you are limiting yourself. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done when you're standing up a new coaching staff. And like, get to it, folks, because no matter how they do it at this point, unless they hire Borrego, it is going to be a first-time head coach. And so you want to make sure you're giving as much space to that as possible. Also, too, you want to make sure you're interviewing those people in an expedited manner. It really does seem like it's JJ Redick, because why on earth, if it's not the idea that they haven't talked to any of these other people in really intense and significant ways, is, I'm not even going to say borderline malpractice, Andy. It's just regular malpractice. It has crossed the line. So I'm just going to assume that it is, in fact, Redick, and we've just been waiting around for it.
To your point about the assistants, we talked during Monday's show about the article that BT Brad Turner did for the LA Times, talking with different first-time head coaches who went straight from either their playing days or the booth or whatever to coaching. Mark Jackson, Derek Fisher, Steve Kerr, Vinny Del Negro, and what they all agreed was, Doc Rivers as well, the staff around them was incredibly important. Like, Steve Kerr had a line, something to the degree of like, I got really lucky with Alvin Gentry and Rod Adams, except it was not luck at all, because I went out of my way to hire them.
Right. And I don't know. I'm not dialed in to the who is available. Can you get, because earlier in this process, and by that I mean about 8 weeks ago, it seems that some of the names that were thrown around were prominent names. And this is, when the Lakers, but look, we talked in the first segment, we talked about what can you do to put yourself on track to be in a position like Boston is. Like, to their credit, as much as Lakers fans hate it, like, this is a team that has put themselves in position to be really good for a long time. And like, people are wondering why they haven't won a title yet already. Like, that's how stacked this team is. One of the things that a team like the Lakers can do is make sure you're paying real money for assistant coaches. I do not know what Boston's payroll is for assistant coaches. I do know that the Lakers have a reputation for not just not paying their head coaches premium money, but also not paying the assistant coaches premium money. And some of the names that were thrown around were guys with good jobs. James Borrego, like, if they won't hire him as the head coach, he could be a great assistant for Redick or something. Well, James Borrego is the associate head coach in New Orleans.
Right.
And so if you're going to get him to leave, you got to offer him something better. And like, I don't think there's, what are you going to be, like the super duper associate head coach? Like the really associate head coach, like the almost head coach? Like, what are you going to call somebody where they're not the head coach and you give them a title, but how you show that respect?
Emeritus.
He's not old enough to be an emeritus.
I don't know what it would be.
What's the opposite of double secret probation for head coaches? I don't know what that is. But like,
no idea.
What can you offer? Money. What can you give? Sam Cassell would be a great assistant in LA. Yes, you're right. But he's, could be, the lead assistant in Boston next year. If, with I believe Charles Lee was their lead assistant, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think the general consensus is that if Cassell stays in Boston, there's there was some thought that he would have maybe jumped over to Doc Rivers in Milwaukee, but that job actually went to Darvin Ham.
Yeah.
So I think the general expectation is that if Cassell stays in Boston, he will be the number 2 guy behind Mazzulla.
Right. If you think you can get David Adelman to jump from that staff on that team, like, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I guarantee it's going to take you a lot of money to do it. Mm-hmm. Because that is a stable situation with a great team and, guys that are if you're an offensive coach, you want to talk about just a pleasure to go to work every day and say, I'm going to design an offense for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic with Aaron Gordon in it and KCP, who might be gone. But like, you understand my point here. Michael Porter Jr., like, that's fun. I like going to, that's like, I don't need to leave that job. So the Lakers have to figure out how they're going to do those types of things and how they're going to make sure that everything that is ancillary to the roster itself is 100% first class. Because as much as the Lakers are really good at the sort of the pageantry of the NBA and putting on a show and ceremonies, like all that stuff, like, they're really good at that stuff, and that stuff matters, and it's important. It's part of what makes the franchise special. But it can't be just that. It also has to be that, and having the best basketball staff, analytics staff, video staff, facility, whatever it is. They should have the best of all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We won't have as much time to get into it in today's show, but we can get more into it for Wednesday. But for fans unaware, something to keep an eye and ear out for, and you may even start seeing some of this by the time you are watching or listening to this show. There is a new rule this year with free agency that as soon as the finals end, which is obviously now, teams can begin negotiating with their own free agents. Again, their own ones. That is all you can start doing this with. But for the Lakers, in theory, they could start negotiating with either LeBron or D'Angelo Russell if they opt out. I'm not sure exactly how this would work for a player option side if you're talking about opting in, extension, whatever. But certainly if they opt out, Taurean Prince, Max Christie, if you're looking to get him before there's an offer sheet that you have to match. And also, too, other teams figuring it out with some of their free agents can be a roadmap for what the Lakers can or cannot do once free agency begins.
That's the big thing. Yeah.
They're getting an idea of who is available, who isn't.
Because we spend like the first, like that lead up, that last week and a half or 2 weeks, the lead up to free agents, and go, well, this guy, that guy, whatever. Like, and 75% of those people are just going to re-sign with their own team. LeBron. We'll see what happens there. But hopefully it'll be interesting to see what happens, like how players really do or do not take advantage of this, and what it does to the market once the full thing opens up in what is that, a couple weeks, really. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, so we can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers. Leave us questions, leave us comments. We definitely want to read them, know your reaction to the Celtics winning a title. We'll see everyone tomorrow.